Your powers are weak, old man.
You can't win, Darth. If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
Hey folks, good more brothers and the rest. I was listening to Man of Tomorrow's stream because he was talking about a guy I actually like, believe it or not. It's Loadkast. Me and Loadkast, we actually are actually Geminis. We're actually kindred spirits in a sense. But and when we disagree, because sometimes Loadcast be on that bullshit, right? And people call themselves pro-black, and I know it's a title. I kind of chuckle because it used to be the old conscious community before the advent of social media. So over the last, I would say, really since 2001, when most of the conscious community got ran off by the feds. The feds started coming after the conscious community for various reasons I'm not really going to go into, because that would be going into a history lesson, and I don't want to go into a history lesson today. I don't want this to be a long ramble, because this is more of a morning thought. But a lot of our so-called pro-blacks are a morphed version of the old conscious community. And a lot of the leaders of the pro-blacks haven't really been vetted very well. Like Umar Johnson wasn't really vetted very well. They say some things that are appealing. They might travel the country, they might wear the clothing, they might even speak the language. But in the old days, you had to be vetted. You had to write a book, you had to have a blog, you had to have some kind of back work that people could observe you over time. Even the Bitter Truth, who used to help his father run a conscious bookstore in Atlanta and have a lot of these people through his bookstore, he knows what I'm talking about. And he knows the difference between the pro-blacks and the conscious community of old. And a lot of the pro-blacks today are misguided, because in the old days, there was a balance. In fact, in the old days, most of the people in front and the ideas are actually led by men. Even though we know that black women were in the conscious community, and they especially were in the pro-black community, but back then the women were different. The women did hold the other women accountable. A lot of this foolishness wouldn't go on. Now, why am I saying that to say this? Is that this attack on SYSBM is foolish. It really is. Because people swirling, people going other places, people hooking up with other races of people wasn't as big a deal back then. You know, we have made it a huge deal. It wasn't as big a deal back then. People might have frowned upon it. They might not have liked it, but if the people who are actually doing good work, they left them alone. Like we have old school conscious community people still in my circle, because I am one of those guys. And you take somebody like Robert F. Smith. Robert F. Smith, even though he's married to a white woman, is a hero in the conscious community because he's doing good work on the ground for black people. He's pro-black, even though he has a white wife. In fact, he's probably more pro-black than 90% of the people that claim the title, even though he is SYSBM. Now, the difference between the way that so-called pro-blacks do it today versus the conscious community of yesteryear, how would they handle SYSBM? Save yourself, black man. First of all, they would have engaged them logically. They would have listened to them. They would have taken in their points, and they would have countered their points logically. And the women in the council, the women in the pro-black community or the conscious community would have heard them and heard their complaints and legitimate complaints. It's not like the complaints that the SYSBM brothers are not legitimate. That's the problem. And which is why we're getting what we're getting. They would have taken legitimate complaints. They'd have written them all down. They'd have formalized a strategy between these guys and the black women that are cutting up, or the black community that's cutting up, and they would have got together with them, they'd have joined with them and say, hey, we're going to go on a campaign and we're going to fix this because we can't allow our valuable members to just walk out for nothing. They'd have joined them, went on a campaign, formulated strategies to actually solve this problem between two groups. They'd have had black psychologists, they'd have had pro-black leaders, they'd had people like Shahrazad Ali, Francis Cress Welsing, and others come out and actually mediate between the women that are obviously acting up and obviously need help and obviously need men that are solid to build solid families, and got on them and say, look, just like I do. The reason I get on women so hard is because I come from that ilk. And they didn't mince any words. Look, do you want a viable black community? Do you want a viable black community with your men? Do you want solid men that will build solid families? And if so, y'all need to come to this meeting, and we need to start classes so that you guys can learn how to appreciate these men and act right. Because chasing knuckleheads and drug dealers is not helping your community. That's what they would have done. And the older ones still do it. The older ones really ride those women. Okay. That's what you don't see. Behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, they ride those women because they know how women can cut up and they know how hard-headed black women can be. And they'd have taken all those black women complaints and turned it back on them. Okay, we hear your complaints, but this is the action that you need to get out of it to actually solve the problem. And the thing is, the bastardized version of what we call the conscious community, which has morphed into the pro-black community, is not doing that. And that's what I heard with Loadkast's complaints about the SYSBM. It's a bastardized version of pro-black. You have taken on the negative aspects of black women, especially the need to be right. Since they really can't address the complaints that SYSBM has toward the black community and black women in particular, what they have reduced their arguments to is shaming tactics like women would use. Like I heard Loadkast calling black men that wanted to date outside the race or dates outside the culture coons. And they call them cowards. And they call them weak. They call them incels. They call them all kinds of names, even though half of the SYSBM people are married or in relationships. So a lot of what they're saying, they don't even go by the facts. And a lot of your pro-blacks didn't do or won't do what the old conscious community would do. The old conscious community, the old study groups would have brought in authors, would have brought in psychologists, would have brought in social workers to actually deal with the problem and started studying it. They'd have found out exactly who these people are as a group, what their earnings were as a group, what their marriage rate is as a group, and then studied the phenomena and then brought back solutions. But the pro-black doesn't do that. They don't do that. They have no idea what they're talking about. They're just going by talking points. In fact, they're going by old talking points. Because I hear a lot of women, I hear a lot of guys use talking points that don't even fit. Like they call SYSBM incels. Like I say, the marriage rate of SYSBM men are actually higher than the normal average because their earning potential and their earnings yearly are higher, like 3 times the normal average. Their education level is about 3 or 4 times the normal average. And they will find out that it's a small group, relatively a small group. And what they would find out that a lot of people displaying the hashtag don't necessarily mean that they live that lifestyle. They just agree with it because it makes sense. And what will really bust their noodle is that a lot of guys, especially the upper echelon guys, already live that lifestyle without the hashtag. Sorry. The guys that I talk to, and I talk to a lot of guys in that upper echelon for black people, okay, upper echelon for white people, or the guys that earn well over $1 million. Now, I know a few guys that do, but I'm talking about the guys that are 6 figures and over. I know a lot of guys that do that earn that. And I talk to a lot of my subs that earn that. And a lot of guys that are up in the upper echelon have already left the building. Sorry, SYSBM is not a group of men that are leaving. The SYSBM crew are the guys that have already left. And I think that a lot of pro-blacks have come to the conclusion that you guys have already left. And they're trying not to have these guys influence the guys that are still here. So they're trying to scare other guys by shaming the SYSBM guys, by calling them coons, calling them sellouts, calling them self-haters, calling them incels, calling them every name they can think of, which is a female tactic. That's what I want to tell Loadkast. You're using the language of your mother. You're trying to wrap female shaming tactics up in so-called male logic, and the two things don't work. The other thing that if pro-blacks really studied, and I think they know it, or they're just denying it, if they come out of their female feelings for a second and use their masculine brain, use their logic for a second, they'll find out what the real problem is. Real problem is not SYSBM. The real problem is where you send your kids to school. Because I personally know 18 out of the 20 young men that our group helped raise are dating out. They're dating Latinas. And if you notice, when I'm on a live stream, or I have a live stream, and there's other people that have sons that are either on the stream or in the chat, I always ask them, who's your son dating? Is she black? And 50% of the time that I ask, probably even more than that, it's like 60, 70% of the time, when I ask that question, their sons are dating others. So it looks like the group below 23 and below are actually dating out, at least 50% of them. And we take the Generation Zs, it's probably more. It's not even like they hate the black girls, because they don't. Because black women tell you that's self-hatred. No, it's not self-hatred. Just because a guy doesn't date you doesn't mean that he hates you. It's called a preference. Just because you don't date a guy doesn't mean you hate the guy. That means you prefer a guy that you deem is better for you. And that's really what it is that the pro-black male, because it's not even the women. We understand that the women are going to shout and scream and call you coon, call you gay, all that kind of stuff. We understand that. That's a natural reaction for a woman. What is surprising is that we got these white knights with their blue ties, I should say blue collars, and their blue suede shoes, their blue simp shoes, coming out and taking up the mantle for these women using female talking points. And then they don't understand why they're getting pushback. They're getting pushback because they can't tell the difference between you and the women that you represent. Normally, black men will get together and mediate a problem if they can. They'll try to get together and solve a problem if they can. But I think the reason, and I said this before, I think the reasons that the quote unquote black first or pro-black guys are actually pushing back on SYSBM are pushing back because they know that their women can't be fixed. Because they've tried and they know that these women cannot be fixed. They cannot be adjusted. Economic realities have brought the women to the table. And I always ask, if the women come back to the table, what are you going to say? And I ask, if they come back to the table, will you want them? So the black women have come back to the table, to the men, to negotiate, but they brought back their old selves, which is something I'm glad about, because now that the women are back at the table with their old selves and the guys get a real good look at what they're getting, guess what they're saying? We don't want this. Because at the beginning, the guys were chasing this idea of black women that they thought that they really couldn't connect with. They couldn't get the attention of. You know, that old saying, the idea is better than the actuality, the dream is better than the reality. I think that's what happened. A lot of black guys in this sector had this dream that if they could get black women to come back to the table, they would act right and they would be the kind of women that they want. And they come back to the table and a lot of guys are saying, we don't want this. This is not what we want. This is not what we thought we were going to get. Now the guys are actually saying, you know what? I'm out. Like, almost never mind. Now the guys are walking away from the table, which is upsetting a lot of the black first or pro-black guys. And they're trying to negotiate with them, but the thing is they're negotiating with something that they can't sell. You can't fix it, you can't sell it, so all you have left is shaming the buyer. And everybody knows shaming the buyer does not work. And every time I've gotten on panels with SYSBM guys, I've always questioned them because they said you should be with black women. You should procreate with black women. You should accept the black women that you have. And the way my mind works is I always ask why, because I'm looking for a logical reason when I ask why. And all they give you is emotional reasons. All they give you is talking points. They really can't even give you emotional reasons because of the damage that black women have done. And that's the funny thing. You know, you try to advocate for black women and then black women come out and they ruin the advocacy. In other words, you try to talk them up and the black women come back and with shaming tactics and attitudes that actually ruin the whole thing. The very behavior that they say they don't have, they actually exhibit in public, which is hilarious. And then when during the negotiation phase, when their representatives are talking to the SYSBM guys about why they should stay, then the black women come right behind them and say, we don't let them go. We don't need them. We're going to get us white men. And you turn around and laugh and said, you dumb broads. We tried to get them back to the table and you're telling them to let them go and you don't have a hand to stand on. You have nothing to give them. That's the whole thing. Black women have nothing to give them. Black women don't have anything to negotiate with. They try to sell them on legacy. They try to sell them on community pride. They try to guilt them. And then you turn around and said, okay, if all these things are important, how come you're not helping? How come you're not doing it? How come you're not helping your men? In other words, we're going to come back in and we're not going to get anything. All you want us to do is fix the stuff that you did. And you have no plan on helping yourself. And you're not giving us the good reason to come back and do it. And they're not. And I've been searching for it because every time I'm in with them, I ask them the question, why should they do it? And what are they going to get out of it for them doing what they do? And they can't answer that. And you're going to say they're going to get women. And the black guys turn around and say, what, those women? Is that what you're selling? The SYSBM guys laugh and walk off. Unless you can actually get these women to come around and actually do better, unless you can give these black men programs to get with for them to come back and actually lend a hand, it's not going to work. Black men can't even get an apology for what has already happened. You can't even start by saying, I'm sorry. And the younger black guys, younger black boys, they see that. They see the attitude, they see the entitlement, they see the disdain or the contempt that the black girls have for them, even though the black girls like them. And they're saying, I don't know where they got this attitude from, but we don't like this. And they walk away. Excuses don't matter. Your history doesn't matter. What black women have gone through in this country doesn't matter. One, because black men have gone through worse. And two, if you can't change your behavior for a person to work with you or live with you, they can pity you. It's like a bum on the street. Okay, he has a story about why he's there, but if he's not willing to start helping himself so you can get behind a program, you can't help him. So you'll feel sorry for him. You'll give him $1 or $2, but you're not taking him home. Black men, especially SYSBM, they can give you $1 or $2. Shout out to Robert Smith. But they're not going to take you home. They're not going to take you into their business. SYSBM will help the black community where they can, where there's programs where they can donate money. They will do that. They're doing it now. They haven't stopped. But they're not going to go in a relationship with women that they can't work with. That's a bridge too far. And until we mediate instead of shame, it's not going to work. In fact, you're going to accelerate it. You guys are becoming walking commercials while other guys should leave and not come back. Anyway, I wanted to keep this short, so I'm going to cut it off here. This is a response to Loadkast. Loadkast, stop using them female talking points. Stop listening to women and what they say. Do your own research. Come up with some logic. Stop being lazy. With that, I'm going to jump off of here. This is BGS out, and I'll see you guys.